The greatest update in Destiny history. And to understand this bland statement, we have to set the stage. It's 2016 and players have been suffering from a lack of content in Destiny. This was a time before Destiny 2. A time long before players would become used to Destiny's seasonal model. Having been over 6 months since the release of an expansion, and many months before Bungie would release Rise of Iron as the final expansion in Destiny 1, people were starting to leave Destiny for other games. What could save Destiny during this time of content drought? What could bring back players and keep them satisfied until the next expansion? On March 23, 2016, Bungie would stream on their Twitch page the first of 3 previews for the April update, with a blog post detailing everything that would be coming. Released on April 12th, the April update, dubbed by the community as the Taken Spring, was a free update for Destiny 1 that brought players back to a refreshed Destiny. Some may have guessed, but the majority of Destiny players were dumbfounded by the amount of content that this update would bring. There were quality of life changes everywhere, and players were ecstatic. The April update refreshed many core activities, along with bringing so many new things to the game. So let's take a look at the past and see what made the April update the greatest update in Destiny history. The clips used in this video are from the many YouTubers who put in the time and effort to post videos on Destiny, and their channels will be linked in the description down below. Let's get into the video. Speaking first about activities, what better way to introduce this than out of the mouths of Bungie themselves?
We hear the community's call for new content, and with the April update, the live team is excited to be able to bring new ways to play and experience Destiny.
What were these new ways to play? First off, Prison of Elders. The activity brought into the game with the House of Wolves was revamped. Now, a level 41 version of the Prison of Elders, with the new inclusion of the Taken and 8 updated bosses, could be completed, and players would obtain powerful gear out of the chest you could open at the end. Along with the Prison of Elders was the new Challenge of the Elders, a non-matchmade version of the Prison of Elders with weekly rotating boss fights and grand rewards for those strong enough to take it on. This powerful gear will be important for players to reach the new light level cap of 335, as only a few activities could be completed for gear that would raise your light level. Other activities included new quests and story missions. For story missions, there was the Pretender to the Throne, which sees Guardians chasing after the taken Prince Malak, Pride of Orcs. This is merely a prelude to the strike, which I'll get into in a second. The other mission was a PlayStation exclusive called Fight Fire with Fire, and was simply a collect quest that had players going back to the Court of Orcs and the Dreadnought to kill bosses and collect essence. There were also a few quests such as At the Gates and Return to the Prison, along with another PlayStation exclusive quest, Essence of Darkness. Backpedaling to Malak, the new strike Blighted Chalice was added into the game. Being many people's favorite strike in the game, myself included, Guardians had to enter the summoning pits on the moon and defeat Malak to prevent him from taking control of Oryx's scattered armies of taken enemies. Along with the Blighted Chalice strike was the reprised Winter's Run strike. What once involved Guardians infiltrating the House of Winter to kill Axor, Archon Priest, there was now an alternate version of the strike involving Taken and a Taken final boss named Nyx's Hunger of Orcs that could be played instead. While those were all the new activities added and updated for the game, plenty of other activities were updated, so here's a short list. Kingsfall and its hard mode were updated so players could receive powerful gear. Court of Orcs rewards could drop higher light artifacts. Strikes, Crucible, Trials of Osiris, and Iron Banner would see plenty of quality of life changes, such as new strike-specific loot, more bounties to increase reputation, and simply more ways to earn loot. While the Taken King changed the fundamental ideas for how people could play Destiny, the April update perfected these ideals and systems, and raised the bar on what players could expect. Before I get into all the different loot that was released with the April update, I feel I should talk about this first. I would argue this is the true point where Bungie would start to flood Eververse with new items. The Eververse trading company, released in the Taken King, originally only had emotes the players could buy, but with the April update this changed. Along with more emotes, 2 armor sets were added to Eververse, and although all these items could be acquired if you were patient and opened your free treasures you could receive every week, this was the true point where Eververse started to get pushed on players. However, I do want to acknowledge that this update was free, and Bungie did state that Eververse was used so that developers could spend more time on secrets and extra additions that players would love. So in the beginning, players were understanding of these additions, as these items paid for the dev time spent on the April update. These two armor sets added into Eververse were some of the most sought after sets in the game. The first armor set, the Spectre armor, used the new chroma system that allowed players to apply a specific glow to it. There will be a few more pieces of armor that would use chroma that was added into New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, and the future War Cult factions. The more sought after of the two sets was the Desolate armor, a full Taken themed armor set that looked amazing, and hopefully another fully themed Taken set could make its way into Destiny 2. What made this Desolate armor great was that once you acquired the whole set, you would unlock the Taken Shiver emote, which made players move as if they were taken. As I mentioned with the factions, there was new armor sets for each one, along with an updated Prison of the Elders armor set that players could obtain, that was also chroma enabled. One last addition was 3 PlayStation exclusive armor sets for the Warlock, Hunter, and Titan. For the rest of the content, 13 Year 1 Destiny exotics were brought back and updated so that players could use. The exotic weapons included the 3 fallen weapons, Dreg's Promise, Lord of Wolves, and Queen Baker's Bow. The Universal Remote and Patience of Time were also updated. The exotic armor included the ATS-8 Arachnid, Kepri's Sting, and Lucky Raspberry for the Hunter, ACD-0 Feedback Fence, Eternal Warrior, and the Glass House for the Titan, Purifier Robes, and Sunbreakers for the Warlock. A new exotic sniper was also added into the game as well. The PlayStation exclusive, which I hate having to say, Zen Meteor, by far one of the coolest exotic sniper rifles we have ever seen, was now obtainable as a random drop for PlayStation players. Along with all this was the Year 2 versions of fan favorite Year 1 legendary weapons. Many of these weapons being loved Trials of Osiris weapons that were sunset when the Taken King released. There are many new things to chase, old exotics to reacquire, and armor sets in Eververse players would have to get lucky to acquire. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the majority of players were satisfied and happy with what they received in the April update. Destiny was arguably in its best state ever, especially since the update focused so heavily on quality of life. There was more variety for what a player could choose to do with their time. The amount of hours people could spend in this update was insane, with so many exotics to acquire and legendaries to get perfect rolls for. However, that was slightly different for the hardcore Destiny player base. Hardcore players felt like the game was beginning to ignore them. The new activities, such as Challenge of the Elders, were easy enough for many players to clear it in an LFG with little to no trouble. The issue was, almost all these arguments were being dismissed by simple phrases such as, "Just be glad you got anything at all," or "It's a free update, stop complaining." As Polygon would put it in their review of the April update, it was a step forward and a step back, talking about how stripping the grind was great for the majority of players, but it was worrying to see Bungie become increasingly comfortable with adding microtransactions in the Eververse. I'm curious what your original thoughts were on the update. Were you happy with what came into the game and the changes made, or were you worried about the direction Bungie was taking the game? Let me know down in the comments below. At the time, people didn't know how Bungie's live service model would work. In many ways, Bungie was testing the waters to see what they could do with the small updates between each expansion. Often compared to the April update was Destiny 2's 30th anniversary pack. Ignoring the fact that it was paid content compared to the free content with the April update, they share a decent amount of similarities. Some of these similarities are that they both released during a time where content was desperately needed, and were both able to sate the community's appetite until the next expansion. The 30th anniversary pack had a dungeon and new 6-player activity, Dares of Eternity, which is more new content than what the April update provided. However, the reason I feel the April update was the true greatest update in Destiny history was how it left the state of the game. Compared to Destiny 2, the game was still hard enough to mostly satisfy the hardcore community, and there was still enough content returned to have a casual player spending dozens of hours to acquire what they could. Compared to Destiny 1, the amount of content we received between expansions in Destiny 2 was extraordinary. The reason this update is remembered so fondly is because it brought something for players to enjoy during the many months it would be before anything new came out. Of course, this was also helped by the positive mood the community was in after the release of the Taken King. The Taken Spring was an outlier, and a prelude to how seasons would fill in the gap between expansions, and how Eververse would get more and more greedy. I hope you enjoyed the video. I was going for a video that felt more like a video essay than a recap, and I feel like it worked out for this specific topic. I'm trying to get better with my cadence, and I imagine that I'll improve as time goes on, after all, I've only been doing this for like 4 videos now. Also, I tried to look at the update without any rose-tinted glasses on to do it justice, and added in the bit about the hardcore community being disappointed as a way to show all angles, especially since the hardcore community keeps Destiny alive in its lowest moments. It doesn't change the fact that the casual community, which makes up the majority of Destiny players, enjoyed what was brought in the update. My twin brother and I have a Twitch channel and plan to start going live sometime in the future, so that will be in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more history videos like this, and have a good day.